Hi! Welcome to the Top 10 Fact Series. A new episode is released every week, so be sure to check back often. Like and subscribe to get notified of every video. Also check other series released once a week. Today's fact is about the 10 amazing discoveries in Africa that no one can explain. Around the world, archaeologists often make discoveries that can be surprising and intriguing at the same time. In Africa, for example, these specialists stumbled upon treasures that made them very perplexed and for which they did not always have any explanations to give us. Do you know what they found in Kenya, South Africa, Morocco, and Zimbabwe? So stick with us till the end of this article to see the amazing discoveries in Africa that no one can explain. 1. Stones of extraterrestrial origins. Let me tell you about a blue-colored stone that was discovered in Sierra Leone in 1990 by a certain Angelo Pittoni, a geologist of Italian origin. The history of this stone will certainly intrigue you. But you will be even more fascinated when you have an idea of its alleged origin. Well, this pretty stone, which as you can see has a beautiful blue color, is not just pretty, but it is also very, very old and particularly light. Indeed, according to the analyses that have been carried out in a good number of laboratories around the world, this stone is made up of approximately 77% oxygen, while the rest is made up of carbon, calcium, and an unknown material. What do you think it could be? One of the most amazing discoveries in Africa. You won't have the answer, of course, and you're not the only one. The many scientists and specialists who have closely studied this stone are unaware of its true composition, and therefore, they do not know anything about its origin. For them, it cannot be an earthly stone, but rather a stone of celestial origin. A remnant of a meteorite, for example. Maybe so, but for those who believe in paranormal phenomena, this stone has been called sky stone. That is to say, stone of the sky certainly has extraterrestrial origins. It is even tangible proof that extraterrestrials made a small visit to Africa thousands and thousands of years ago. 2. Megalithic circles of Senegambia. You know Stonehenge well, but you will be surprised to learn that there is another site in Africa that is just as remarkable, if not much more curious. Do you want to know more? Direction therefore West Africa, more precisely the border between Senegal and Gambia, where the civilization that populated this place has developed one of the most intriguing and fascinating archaeological wonders of the world, stone circles megalithic. Located in Senegambia, these large sets of circles, which extend over 350 kilometers long and 100 kilometers wide, are made up of more than 1,000 monuments, including tumuli. That is to say, funerary mounds where rich and important people were buried, as well as stones cut in columns which measure on average 2 meters in height and weigh up to 7 tons. The great mystery. Thanks to the excavations that were carried out, the experts discovered archaeological material that could be dated between the 3rd century BC and the 16th century AD. Moreover, studies have revealed that the stones were extracted using iron tools. The most fascinating thing is that the megalithic circles of Senegambia have made it possible to have a clear idea of the society that lived there at that time and to understand its degree of organization. But above all, this site has made it possible to discover the various objects that were buried with the bodies and to show how prosperous this civilization was. Isn't it all interesting? Of course, the stone circles of Senegambia have been on the UNESCO World Heritage List since 2006. 3. The Starkfontein Caves. South Africa is not only home to game reserves, penguin beaches, or diamond mines. This country, located at the southernmost point of the African continent, also conceals archaeological treasures. But there is one that fascinates everyone who makes this amazing discovery in Africa. Yes, we're talking about the Starkfontein Caves, a cave system that was accidentally discovered in the late 1890s and is considered one of the richest fossil sites in the world. Moreover, the fossils that have been discovered in the Starkfontein Caves are said to be more than 4 million years old and represent the birth of humanity, as evidenced by the thousands of stone tools that have been found there. It is therefore quite natural that this site continues to be the subject of paleontological excavations, and that it today attracts a large number of tourists and fossil enthusiasts. 4. Quartzite rocks on the island of Anjou. It often happens that scientists make sometimes surprising discoveries while exploring a given area. For example, there is no shortage of amazing discoveries in Africa. However, if there is something that has puzzled researchers for a very long time, it is what they discovered on the island of Anjou, an island located off the eastern coast of Africa. Well, this island, which is supposedly the fruit of a volcano, is not only made up of volcanic rocks, but it's also home to a rock that's not supposed to be there. This is quartzite, a kind of rock that forms from sandstone and is usually found in a river or delta, but never on a volcano. Except that this rock ended up on this island in the middle of the ocean to the great amazement of the researchers. What moved those rocks to this island? Mystery. No one knows how these quartzite rocks ended up there. And this despite the studies that are constantly carried out to find its origin. The day may come when scientists will finally find the answers to their many questions. But in the meantime, these quartzite rocks are the delight of the inhabitants of the island who use them as tools to sharpen their knives, for example. 5. Animal Cemetery in Berenice. Berenice is an ancient Egyptian port, 2,000 years old and located in the southwest of Egypt. Apart from the role it played, this ancient pharaonic city had a particularity that distinguished it from many other cities. You want to know that, don't you? Let me tell you, however, that you will be amazed, because even the scientists who visited the region were very surprised by this discovery. A truly amazing discovery in Africa. Well, to satisfy your growing curiosity, I'm going to tell you right away what made Berenice a very special city and not like the others at that time. This ancient Egyptian port was home to a cemetery for animals. No, we are not talking about graves of animals mummified or buried after having been sacrificed for some ritual, but about a cemetery where cats and dogs were buried by their masters after their natural death, with collars and other jewelry, pieces of pottery, and textiles to protect them. A truly amazing discovery in Africa. The scientists who carried out excavations in this ancient cemetery also discovered that the animals were buried in individual graves, and that some of them showed signs of illnesses and were cured by humans. Well then, this proves that pets have been around for a very long time. 6. Doukki, an amazing discovery in Africa. There are many sites in the world whose architecture has always appealed to archaeologists. However, did you know that the African continent also has a real architectural treasure? Before giving you the name and location of the site, look at these images. This is Doukki, an archaeological site located in Sudan in what was ancient Nubia. Its circular patterned architecture, however, is of a complexity that has long puzzled archaeologists specializing in Sudan. For this, a joint Swiss-Franco-Sudanese mission conducted studies for a few months in order to better understand what made this site both imposing and impressive. What is certain is that the Egyptians had a lot to do with this exceptional architecture. 7. Gedi Ruins. Kenya is not just a land of Sepharis, and its name is not only linked to lions and the Maasai tribe. This country is indeed home to another marvel full of mystery that will certainly leave you speechless when you find out what it is. In the coastal town of Kilifi is a forest that houses the ruins of an ancient city called Gedi. Known as the Gedi Ruins, this rich archaeological site was discovered in 1884 by John Kirk, a British resident of Zanzibar. A great mystery. Since that time, the mystery still hangs over this ancient Kenyan city, which housed mosque houses and even a palace, because no one knows where its inhabitants have gone. Of course, this gave rise to several theories and hypotheses to explain the possible reasons that caused the inhabitants of Gedi to desert their city during the 17th century. Some argue that it was destroyed by invaders, while others believe that the receiving waters of the Indian Ocean forced the inhabitants to abandon their city to find water elsewhere. Another hypothesis suggests that the Black Death brought by Portuguese explorers killed all the inhabitants. However, the lack of evidence supporting either hypothesis means that mystery still hangs around this ancient city, and it may never be known exactly what happened to the inhabitants of Gedi. 8. Earliest writings. If I ask you what are the oldest written languages in the world, you'll answer without hesitation Greek and Chinese. That's what you might think. But to tell the truth, there are much older written languages than the ones you just mentioned. Some even date back to prehistoric times. So to correct your answer, note that specialists in writing and written languages have discovered that the oldest writings in the world came straight from Africa. Yes, these writings have been found in ancient Nubia, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Liberia, and many other African countries. What was most disturbing for these archaeologists, however, was that the African continent also had the largest collection of written languages in the world. This testified to its great civilization, long before the arrival of Westerners. 9. Oldest jewels discovered in Morocco. We are now heading to Morocco in North Africa to tell you about the surprising discovery made by archaeologists a few years ago. While they were working in the cave of Bismount in the southwest of the country, these researchers came across objects that dated, according to their estimates, between 142,000 years and 150,000 years. Do you know what they were? Jewelry, the oldest in the world. These jewels were made from shells, and they would have been created by a population that excelled in the manufacture of jewelry. This population would even be at the origin of the first jewels made in the world. Handcrafted using fine tools, these ancient jewels also had holes for inserting a string. Scientists have also estimated that these jewels were not only worn as ornaments, but that they also served as a means of revealing his identity. 10. The oldest dinosaurs. The African continent is undoubtedly a land rich in archaeological treasures, and it looks like the researchers aren't done with the amazing discoveries yet. Recently, in Zimbabwe, a team of scientists made a surprising discovery that they never expected to make. To give you an idea, this thing was named mistery, and was quite gigantic, if we dare say. You guessed it, right? Yes, we're talking about a dinosaur and not just any. Indeed, these scientists have just discovered the oldest dinosaur in Africa. According to the studies that scientists have conducted and according to their estimates, the Mbairsaurusrathi would have lived on our planet more than 230 million years ago. It has even been described as a two-legged, long-necked dinosaur measuring 1 meter tall. Isn't it all amazing? If one day you go to Zimbabwe, you can admire its almost complete skeleton at the Natural History Museum. 11. Cluster bombs. And now take a good look at this picture. Of course, you can think of it as another treasure unearthed in an archaeological dig somewhere in Africa. Fake. It is neither an archaeological treasure nor an extraterrestrial object. Do you see these small round objects piled up inside this capsule? Well, it's a cluster bomb. But where do these bombs come from? If you know what that means, then know that it's a big bomb that contains several small bombs, which are scattered over very large areas. Unfortunately, these bombs were dropped over many countries, including South Sudan. However, sometimes they do not explode. This then represents a real threat for the children or for the farmers who work their land. The use of these bombs is now strongly condemned by African leaders. Now tell us in the comments, have you ever heard of any other amazing and fascinating discoveries in Africa?